Wonderful. And you talked about endocrine systems. I mean, you're known, I think, particularly for the Endorphin Effect book, physiology and health as a way in. Really talking about like sort of concrete, scientifically grounded health things. It does seem like still a big way in. A lot of people are getting interested in different things from a health orientation. So anything you want to say about that?
No, I think it makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, there are health systems, classical traditions of medicine, like Ayurveda, like Taoist medicine, where there was no separation between the science and physiology of the medicine and metaphysics, because what they're going for, that you will know probably better than me as a martial artist creature, is that health is best defined as pain-free flexibility. And bad health is a lack of flexibility with pain. And so in Taoist martial arts, internal martial arts, Chinese medicine, healing, what you're trying to do is get the body back into that oceanic sense of flow with the universe, with nature. So there's no separation between spiritual connection with the Tao, with God, Goddess, whatever you call it, and being healthy. And it's the same in Ayurveda as well. And in a sense, any body therapist, more than a talk therapist, the body therapist knows precisely that they're bringing their whatever they're doing to their client is enabling their body to come back into a kind of open flow that's pain-free and flexible again. And that's part of the way, me as a metaphysician would say, that's part of the way the energy field of the cosmos is. It's a big ocean and it flows and has streams in it.
It's very Taoist what you're saying. You mentioned Taoism a couple of times. It actually doesn't come up that often in interviews. People want to mention Buddhism, which I love, sometimes Hinduism, from the yoga background. Yeah. So you've actually just reminded me of something. That the first copy of the Tao Te Ching I ever read was from the girl I mentioned earlier.
Oh, yeah.
I've just made this weird connection 24 years later. So
your most important teacher.
She just had her birthday a couple of days ago, so maybe she was on my mind. But wow. Okay. So do you want to say a little bit about Taoism and what that is? Because it isn't as well known as sometimes Buddhism, Hinduism.
You don't think so?
Actually, not in a lot of embodiment circles. I think in internal martial arts, of course, but outside of the Qigong Tai Chi world, not so much, actually.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you, my part of my background is I did 3 years psychoanalysis, talk therapy, blah, 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 blah. Very helpful. I was also into pagan and Western mystery, magic, esoteric Christianity. And in those spiritual systems, there are visualizations where you put inside your body, for example, a tree of life, and you feel it and sense it, and you move energy around the tree of life inside your body. So there are traditions across the world where there are embodiment exercises that involve visualizations. But Taoism is the most explicit, for me anyway, is the most explicit model of how to move energy through your body. And all the exercises of Tai Chi and Qigong, for me, are students being taught, look, these are examples of how to move your body and feel the way energy moves inside you. And when you've learned how to move your body and feel the energies inside you, go free form and live your life with that sense of feeling and freedom. And so I hugely recommend to people who are looking to be embodied to do some Tai Chi or some Qigong. But you'll be glad to hear me say this, if they are people who are not embodied and lack confidence, I'm continually nagging them to go and do a hard martial art for 6 months.
Particularly young guys, I've found.
Yeah, young guys. I'm the father of young women, so particularly want them to be able to assert clear boundaries.
That too, for sure. Yep, for sure. Yep, definitely. Some cultural pieces in there too. There's a lot of English women that I find don't have that clear no, particularly a certain generation. So the younger generation, maybe you're getting it a bit more. But the importance of I've only just sort of come to the softer martial arts over in time. I started off with with classic journey of more hard styles to more soft. And this idea of the sort of the soft and the flexible and the flowing, you know, it's very Taoist kind of idea, isn't it? Looking at balance, looking at softness and flow as signs of health.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the challenges is when you're in your teens and 20s and 30s, you're still looking to pose into life. So you actually, it's more important to you that you look vibrant and toned
Right.
than feel healthy.
Right. So the outside look, and this is maybe a challenge in our culture as well, is it really reinforces the outside.
But it's natural, isn't it? In your 20s.
You think it's natural?
Yeah, you're looking to mate and you're looking to show off and all the rest of it, you know. When you get older and that starts to fall away, you suddenly realize that all those strategies are in actual fact meant to soften in order to create genuinely good health. And genuinely good health is, as I said earlier, flexibility without pain, you know. So to be beautifully toned and muscular and all the rest of it, you know, it's actually relatively meaningless. It's a nice way of posing. It's a bit of glamour, you know, but it's not meaningful.
I do see a trend in our culture though, which really wants to keep that going. So, you know, yogis in middle age who are still seem to be very much into the posing aspects and the external aspects. I wonder if we're trying to prolong one of the less healthy stages of youth.
Human beings will be human beings, won't they? I think it's just natural that we all have our little peccadillos and wanting to look nice and good and be cool and all the rest of it. You know? A lot of us have to go through some kind of crisis or illness before we get slapped across the face and wake up to, there's a little bit more to it than this, you know. I was very lucky. I had a very, very bad illness when I was 26 that laid me out. I couldn't walk properly or run for 3 or 4 years. And I give big thanks for that lesson, you know.
One of my aikido teachers, he was dying of cancer at the time, and I was in very close physical contact with him while he had late stage cancer, because I was throwing me around every day. He used to say, Mark, you need to get old before you get old. And what he meant by that was the sort of, you know, realize you're falling apart, realize that your strength will fade. You know, I was quite athletic at that time. Your athleticism will fade. And he was sort of trying to convey this to me. And I'm hoping he at least shaved a few years off the understanding, you know. But sometimes I feel like I learn the hard, slow way a bit too often.
Yeah, but you know, our body will create crises and illness for us until we learn the lesson.
So in terms of psychosomatic illness, is that part of your work? I think I've come across that in your work before.
Well, yeah, I mean, the point is, I don't want to sound like a clever dick here. I don't want to sound cocky, because I don't want anybody suffering. That's number one. I don't want people to suffer. But when we are ill, and when we are suffering, and when we are in pain, you've got a couple of ways to go. One is whinge and be a victim. 2 is give away your power to medics. And the third is, in the middle of it, in the middle of the suffering and the illness and the pain, is to wake up and midwife yourself into self-management and consciousness and self-care, proper self-care. And I think my experience is a lot of people who wake up to personal development, spiritual development, are people who've gone through health crises and gone, what? I can't just be a victim. And something in their consciousness wakes up.
Either a health crisis or some kind of an emotional crisis. There's something that wakes people up. I also don't like to see people suffer. So sometimes I'm wondering, is there a way to do that without quite so much suffering, to kind of wake people up to that possibility?
But I mean, I pray for waves of grace, which is, there's growth without suffering for me, grace. I pray for tsunamis of grace all the time, for myself, for everybody, right? But the stuff I've been working on in myself that's hanging around for decades, you know, I can't quite get rid of that little bit of whatever it is, you know, family. It's usually irritability with family, you know.
Yeah. That's one of the toughest ones. Yeah. Okay. And then sort of the endorphin thing. Do you want to say a little bit about that, as it's a bit of your sort of specialist dish? So anything in that, or is it sort of old hat now?
No, the bit I love about it is, isn't it wonderful that nature or evolution or creation or whatever it is has made it so that if a human being pauses and focuses down with kindness and care into their own body, that triggers a neuropeptide response that feels good. Isn't that wonderful? That when you have an attitude that's kind to your own body, when you have some pain in your body and you pause and you turn your focus down to it with kindness, that triggers a response of feel-good hormones. I think that's a very clever piece of design or evolution, or whatever you want to call it. And what I love about it is that when people do that particular practice of being kind to their own bodies, the inner smile, that at the same time as they do the inner smile, there's a part of their brain mind that's waking up and becoming something different, which is kind to itself. And I think that's very useful for people. In fact, we had this began the conversation talking about bullies and people who are embodied and too aggressive with it. And I said I wanted people to be loving and kind. I think the other thing I want to say is when that part of your consciousness that's guiding you to be embodied, that says, "Oh, I'm now going to relax, I'm now going to be in my body." I want that part of our consciousness, that part of our mind, to be very kind to ourselves. The best possible parent. I think that's absolutely crucial, because if you've got your internal parent being kind, it grows your consciousness and it's good for your health.
You say it's quite phenomenal that we're wired for self-kindness and connection as well as just fight or flight. And that actually we can, produce these measurable physiological benefits that also subjectively feel lovely. Natural heroin, pretty full on, have pain-killing effects, have emotional soothing effects, have all sorts of benefits physiologically that we would otherwise have to medicate in less healthy ways. And they're actually wired for that. People make out like we're just wired for fight or flight, but we're not. We're measured for tend and befriend and connection to ourselves. And, we've got our own sort of benign inner drug dealer ready to go.
Yeah, you say inner drug dealer. I say the most beautiful parent is sitting inside one's psyche, right? A good example for people to understand is if they watch an opera singer who understands this. If an opera singer hits a duff note, like they squawk, it will happen because their throat muscles or their chest muscles have gone fractionally too tense in that moment. If in that moment they then internally criticize themselves for getting that bad note, they send messages from the brain through the neuroendocrinal system that trigger more adrenaline, cortisol. So they tense up, and that makes their voice even worse. So when you watch great opera singers hit a duff note, the next thing you'll see them do is they look like a bouncer outside a club. You'll see them, their hands will come down on their stomach, their chin will come down, and they'll smile down into their bodies. Their smile, which is typical bouncer body language. It's I'm not taking any notice of the provocation that's going on outside me. I'm staying lovely and cool, right? I'm Mr. Miyagi from
Mr. Miyagi.
Mr. Miyagi, I'm at ease in my body and I'm not taking any notice of what goes wrong. And in that way, my body drops down into being at ease, is more flexible, and I sing a beautiful note, or I avoid that punch more gracefully.
Nice. I'm taking some notes here, by the way, if you see me tapping my phone. Anything else we haven't talked? I'm going to need to go soon, William, just because I'm desperate for the toilet. But that's going to be the natural end to our interview. But I've got 5 minutes left in me at least. So is there anything you haven't talked about that you'd like to talk about that's sort of alive for you right now?
Yeah, I think this relates to COVID.
Great. Let's bring it right to the present moment.
Yeah, I think the gift that those of us who are embodied can give is that, you know, we were talking about leadership. And leadership, we're talking about spiritual leadership. And I'd rather, maybe in a sense, I'd rather call it holistic leadership. That's aware of the full picture.
Uh-huh.
That if we can be embodied, at ease in our bodies, with kindness and a warm heart and care, that is the crucial behavior required in a crisis.
Yes.
And that transmits to other people. So whatever you think about vaccination, whatever you think about the source of COVID, whatever you think about how government is managing COVID, our job is to just be embodied and a calming influence. Our species has seen many plagues.
Mm-hmm. This is not our first rodeo. This is not our first rodeo.
It will come and pass. Our species has also seen many demagogues.
Mm-hmm.
They come and go as well. And our job, those of us who are conscious, our job is to stay embodied, calm, kind, and dignified, and have that as a radiating aura and behavior that will comfort and calm people, and will also remind those who are being hysterical on both sides of the arguments, because there are many arguments going on.
What I like about kind embodied leadership, if I could step in there just briefly, is independent of opinion. Yeah. Right? Like, I could be with people who I agree with or disagree with.
Yeah.
I could not give an opinion. I could give an opinion. It doesn't matter. The kind embodied leadership is independent of those agree or disagree, left or right, whatever it is.
Yeah. And you wait until you can see that a useful communication can happen. Otherwise, I just keep quiet.
Wasting my breath otherwise, right?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, William, where do people find out about you? Where do they go if they want to kind of look up your stuff more? 26 books. So.
WilliamBloom.com.
William
like flowers that bloom in the spring. WilliamBloom.com. There's loads of videos and audio on it, and some of the books, and lots of articles and stuff.
And a closing message about the body, William, before I have to go pee. This has been brilliant, by the way. I hope we become friends. I'll definitely look you up when I'm in the West Country. I really enjoyed this. I think I just love your style so much. I'm so glad Adrian put me on to you when we've got you coming to the conference, of course. Super welcome there. Yeah. So
please come and say hello. Come and have a bevy. Hey, everybody listening to this, be embodied, be well, and model for other people. Model for other people dignified, generous, calm behavior.
Thank you so much, William, for joining us today.
Lots of love to you all.